In this episode of American Greed, El Chapo's American proteges.
The twins were probably the largest cocaine and heroin traffickers Chicago's ever seen.
Peter and Jay Flores, two working-class Chicago brothers who reached the heights of the drug trade.
The twins were directly responsible for moving $2 billion.
Earning the trust of the world's most wanted man, notorious international drug lord Joaquin Guzmán Loera.
We were living every drug dealer's dream.
Tonight, Peter and Jay Flores are in hiding, but for the first time on television, their wives are ready to tell the whole story.
Our husbands were making $10 million a month in profit. We're talking LeBron James money.
It's a life of extravagant cars, private zoos, and gold-plated narco luxury. But when the twins end up in the sights of Uncle Sam, the proteges will make the fateful choice to betray their mentor. And El Chapo's empire will never be the same.
Amigo.
¿Qué dice? ¿Cómo está?
Bien, bien. ¿Cómo está tu carnal?
It's crystal clear what would happen to you and your family if you didn't do what he wanted.
All of a sudden, these men just run in, and we're down on the floor with AK-47s to our heads.
The sun comes up on an undisclosed location not far from the U.S.-Mexico border. For the locals, it's just another day in paradise. But for one family that crossed the Sinaloa drug cartel, it's another day in hiding.
Over the lifespan of their drug empire, our husbands moved 100 tons of cocaine.
Meet Olivia and Mia Flores. They've been in hiding ever since their husbands, Peter and Jay Flores, decided to exit the drug trade and cooperate with the U.S. investigation of Joaquin Guzmán Loera, a.k.a. El Chapo.
Chapo was a very serious man. However, with our husbands, he treated them like his sons.
To this day, the Flores family remains in danger, their lives subject to retribution from freelance killers still loyal to Chapo. But Olivia and Mia have agreed to step out of the shadows for the first time to sit down for an exclusive interview with American Greed and open up about their time as cartel wives, married to Peter and Jay, and for better or worse, to the Sinaloa cartel.
Our husbands were a huge asset to Chapo Guzman.
They were American, they spoke English, and then they spoke Spanish.
Our husbands were able to maneuver in both the streets of Chicago all the way up to the mountaintops of Sinaloa, and they were able to navigate both worlds.
Navigating both worlds is also something that comes naturally to Olivia and Mia. Long before they were cartel wives, they were daughters to two of Chicago's finest.
I come from a family of law enforcement. My father's a police officer.
I also come from a family of law enforcement. My dad, all my uncles, cousins, they're all on the Chicago police force.
It's an odd quirk of this storied city that honest cops and criminals often live side by side in Chicago's working-class neighborhoods. And like the Capulets and Montagues, their children sometimes fall in love.
When you think about somebody in that drug world, you have this vision of somebody being very aggressive, very powerful, very vicious.
They were just really, really different.
Peter and Jay were very polite,
very soft-spoken.
And they just carry themselves so much different that I didn't understand what they were doing in the drug trade.
Peter and Jay's life in the drug trade begins in Chicago's Mexican-American neighborhood called La Villita, or Little Village. That's where they were born in 1981. And even in the cradle, the twins had a head start on the game.
The twins, for lack of a better way to describe it, were born into the drug trade.
The twins' father was a known narco trafficker.
By day, the twins' father, Margarito Flores, drives a forklift at a local candy factory. But his side hustle is moving loads of narcotics up from Mexico.
When the twins were little, they basically served as human cover loads. where their father would bring them back and forth across the border, their car seats, or they would sit physically on top of bales of marijuana that were hidden in the car to reduce suspicion as the car was going back and forth across the border.
When they were children, they were the lookouts for their dad. So they knew about the drug business even before, they went to high school.
In the mid-1990s, the twins' father moves back to Mexico, while Peter and Jay stay put in Chicago. Using their father's cartel contacts, the twins begin buying pure, uncut cocaine from Mexican suppliers like El Chapo. But unlike their old man, the Flores twins are innovators when it comes to distribution. And their new ideas pay off in a big way.
Before the twins, the cartels would use like the Latin kings. And the way that they operated, it was territorial. You owned a territory, and you guarded your territory with guns and blood. But when the twins came along, they broke all the norms. They tapped all the gangs. They made alliances with everybody.
Unlike previous generations, the twins begin to break down dividing lines in one of America's most segregated cities, doing wholesale business with an emerging market of like-minded buyers.
When it comes to money, they see no color. It was just green.
So the twins worked with African Americans. They worked with Puerto Rican gangs as opposed to just Mexican gangs. So they expanded because the twins were not about territory. They were about money. In the end, everybody understood the language of money. They weren't even adults before they were millionaires.
As the twins' customer base grows, so does their need for cocaine. They are now buying upwards of 10,000 kilos a month, and 2,000 miles away, their chief supplier is starting to take notice. From his perch atop the Sinaloa cartel, Joaquin Guzmán Loera is almost a mythical figure in the drug trade.
He was a logistics genius.
Jack Riley spent years hunting El Chapo as a senior official at the DEA.
His ability to move goods across the border and deliver them in that internal part of the United States was unmatched.
El Chapo first pops up on the radar in 1993 with the discovery of his drug tunnels running underneath the U.S.-Mexico border.
The fact of the matter is this border that you see here this morning is under siege by drug traffickers. And at this point, significant ties to the Joaquin Guzmán organization have been established.
He comes up with these crazy ideas that end up working for him.
Chapo's game-changing innovations run the gamut, from fully engineered tunnels underneath the border to homemade submarines that ferry drugs through the Pacific.
It's insane. It's something never seen before.
And he's seen as untouchable, thanks in part to his daring escape from a Mexico prison in 2001.
So what he did was he bribed somebody in the laundry unit to smuggle him out in a laundry cart.
By 2004, he's thought to traffic nearly $3 billion worth of narcotics around the globe. Still, he wants more access to U.S. markets, more money. And in the twins, he sees kindred spirits.
He was an innovator himself, and he recognized in the twins that they were smart, that they were really in expanding, just like Chapo. So they had that in common.
It was effectively a no-brainer business decision to bring them directly in the fold. They basically were granted access into the innermost circle of the cartel. They received the most favorable pricing structure that the cartel was willing to offer. And so from that point on, they became the largest distribution points in the United States for the Sinaloa cartel.
With his new Chicago connection, El Chapo taps the assets that originally put the city on the map, an ideal location and a ready workforce.
Chicago was really Chapo's hub. It's in the middle of the country, the rails, the interstates. I mean, that's why many Fortune 500 companies are located in Chicago. Outside of Mexico, Chicago probably ranks third or fourth of the largest Mexican national population. So there's tens of thousands of hardworking Mexicans in Chicago, and Chapo could hide his organization amongst them. So his organization was well entrenched, and there's 100,000 documented street gang members in the Chicago area who largely make their living putting dope on the street. And Chapo used them, if you will, as their subcontractors.